What up, y'all? Appreciate you showing up, hanging out. This is my dumb ass. Like and subscribe. So, I was just reading some stuff on Twitter, and somebody was talking to Tom Green, I think his name was. Not Tom Green. Something Green. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But he's the general manager of Candy Crush, basically. King, you know. And he was spitting out some numbers. And it made me realize how big the King part of this ABK deal, the K part of the ABK deal is. I think it's bigger than Call of Duty. I mean, as far as numbers, as far as the amount of people. So for instance, he said that Candy Crush has been, I think Saga, has been downloaded over 3 billion times. That's a lot, right? He also said congruent players, monthly active users, 233 million every month. Come on, son. Now, my thing is like, okay, that's why you buy that's why if you have the money, you buy a company, because 230, that's more than what Disney Plus is pulling. And they're pulling in money. I mean, they're spending a lot of money though on their shows, but still they got about 150, maybe close to 200, and somewhere between million users. And so, I mean, look, Candy Crush is free for the most part, but it's ad supported. Well, you know the game, and you could probably buy stuff. I don't know. I think I played it one time and I was like, okay, it's just freaking match 3, whatever. But the business model there, it works. It's making them billions of dollars each month. They have hundreds of millions of players, engagement. Remember, every month. So think about how, if at all possible, Microsoft can incorporate that 233 million players per month into Game Pass. How can they take King, Candy Crush, and all the other games that they make and merge it ever so delicately with Game Pass without charging people? So that's why as a couple of videos back, I said there might be a free version, a ad-supported version. I didn't say that, that was rumors. An ad-supported version of Game Pass. Why? Because of Candy Crush, because of 233 million. It makes sense. Like, imagine that, right? They say, okay, we're just gonna rename the store or whatever is Game Pass Marketplace or whatever, or just call it Game Pass for mobile, whatever. That would make sense, actually, because you got Game Pass PC, Game Pass on Xbox, and Game Pass for mobile. Okay, so yeah. So Game Pass for mobile. Most of the stuff there is free. They got free stuff. They got trials. They got demos. You could buy some stuff there, too. It's kind of just like the marketplace. It would replace that, honestly. And they should really just throw in... Well, no, they can't do that because Game Pass is already paid, so you can't really mix it up like that. Huh. But I am pretty sure that they're trying to figure out a way to incorporate those numbers into the Game Pass numbers, and then like overnight, it's like boosh, it's destroying Sony like that. And that's, you know, you may think that's like devious or evil or something, but it's not, because Sony did the same thing. When they changed their PlayStation Plus, how it was, like PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus were separate, when they smashed them together, they smashed together the numbers as well. So they gained a bunch of numbers as far as PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus. They just, the numbers, since they were two separate entities joined into one, the numbers joined into one. Of course, they lost 2 million subs that first, you know, initially. So they gained, but they lost at the same time. But that's where my mind went. I was like, wait a second. They have 233 million active users every month. 3 billion people downloaded it already. I don't know what the breakdown of how much money they make, but they're making money, whatever. So it's like, my mind went like, how are they going to sneakily rename stuff, shuffle stuff around to make those 233 into Game Pass subs, if you will. Even if it's a free sub, even if you sign up. Well, here's the thing, here's what's gonna happen too. This is gonna happen automatically. When the purchase is final, right? If you wanna play Candy Crush, you're gonna have to sign in to probably an Xbox account or Microsoft account, tie that into the Xbox, whatever. And those are the numbers. And then they can say, okay, we got 300 million active users on our ecosystem. Instead of saying Game Pass specifically or saying, King specifically or Candy Crush, they can put all the numbers together in our ecosystem, the Xbox ecosystem, because King and the ABK deal, even though it is a Microsoft acquisition, I think they can still say in the Xbox ecosystem because it's their gaming division. I don't know how. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they say in the Microsoft gaming ecosystem or something. I mean, it's all about language. So, if they want to be truthful, they'll name it. They'll be like Microsoft Gaming Division or whatever. And they're doing it that way because Microsoft has all the money, and I think it's easier for them to have certain acquisition. Well, I mean, in order to do a $69 billion acquisition, Xbox can't afford that because Xbox is a company owned by Microsoft. So on the books, Xbox probably doesn't have $69 billion to spend like that, but Microsoft does. So it's all paperwork and blah, blah, blah. It's not semantics, but it's, whatever. It's procedural, bureaucracyized stuff like that. But, whatever. But those numbers kind of, I never looked into it. I wasn't too concerned. I was like, I knew King was a big thing, and I knew Candy Crush is probably one of the biggest, mobile games. I'm pretty sure my aunt and my mom and all, it's the thing about Candy Crush that's it's not generational. Everybody's playing it. From 80 years old to 5 years old, everybody's playing it. And that's why it's such a beast. But, like I said, that's kind of a more important play if you think about it. And the fact that Sony's not saying anything about King or anything about Blizzard is telling, because those are big parts of the deal and they're equally important. I think they're equally as important as Call of Duty, although Call of Duty is more front-facing and more in the zeitgeist, if you will, popular or whatever. Well, actually, I take it back. It's not more popular than Candy Crush. It's not. It's just not. They don't have the numbers that Candy Crush has. But it's a force. It's a power. It's whatever it is. But the fact that Sony is ignoring the other aspects of the deal illustrate Sony's real motive. And he said it himself. He doesn't care about a deal with Activision. He just wants to block the merger. So this isn't like 4D chess on Sony's side. This is just, a spoiled brat trying to get its way, trying to get his way, and being upset that the system isn't working for him when it should in his eyes. That's how a lot of privileged people or people who feel that they should be privileged act. When stuff isn't going their way, like, oh, they're gonna have a little hissy fit, start crying, oh my gosh, start calling names. He called the CMA irrational. I was like, what? And I was looking on Twitter, and there's so many. I've seen one post where there's some ponies, duck unicorns, talking about, oh, Jim, you was right. All broken English, of course. You was right. You were right to not take the deal. They gonna get it anyway, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, Xbox will probably put it on PlayStation anyway, right? But without a contract, they can do whatever they want. So Microsoft could be like, yeah, we'll put it on for now. We'll put it on. But the early, what is it called? The early gameplay thing. I forgot what they call it. They did with Forza, where you buy the special edition, you get early access to it or whatever. Let's just call it early access. So the early access, you get about a week early. That's only on Xbox. Oops. Well, see, they can do that because technically, the release date is the release date. It'll come out on the release date on the PlayStation the same date as the Xbox and PC, right? So by doing an early access program on Xbox, is it really kind of going against the day and date type of thing as far as Xbox and PlayStation? I don't know. That's the gray area. That's kind of a thing that they've done. I don't think Sony's ever done that with any of their games. They just, it releases now and buy it for $70, right? So, but the smart thing that Xbox is doing the early access stuff, because all the streamers are going to buy it early so they can stream it and they can have the first footage out there, and they because they have to play the newest games first all the time, right? So they automatically have this install base to pay for that version. So they're gonna get sales. Are they gonna get as many sales as if they would if it wasn't on Game Pass? No, but they get both the best of both worlds. You get the early initial sales and you get the subs. So it's a win-win. It's a very smart, when I think about it, it's like, it's smart because it's more patience rather than I need to get all the money as fast as possible because games are only good in the zeitgeist of a week or two or maybe 3 if we're lucky, right? But Microsoft is like, Game Pass, get them subs, it's $15 a month. So by 6 months, the game is paid for, or less than 6 months, like 5 months, 4 or 5 months, the game is paid for. So all they have to do is keep people on the hook in Game Pass for 6 months per release. And I'm sure they have mathematicians and calculi people out there going beep boop boop, beautiful mind in it, and see the numbers and the letters and all that stuff. And they figuring out, how many people they need to have subbed, how many games they can release within the time frames so that, kind of matched up against how many subs they have. Like the more subs that they get, the more games that they can release, like AAA bangers, the more money they can spend on these games because the revenue is coming in to replenish the cost of whatever it costs to develop said games. So it behooves the industry, or, it benefits us as players that Microsoft gains more Game Pass subs because they get more money, and that turns around to development, costs and stuff. Just like when you think about when Sony's crying about Call of Duty, losing Call of Duty and all this stuff, they're talking about losing money, and they're talking about losing that money will affect their first party, output. And I'm like, first of all, I understand it. I understand it as far as they make money, they can put it back into their games. But, I said this last video, that if they can't sustain their own games with their own games, if they can't sustain making their own games with the sale of their own games, their business model is screwed up. And it's so screwed up that they're scrambling, crying. They're in panic mode right now. Sony's in panic mode because they don't have Game Pass. They don't have a Game Pass. And the fact that they're stubborn and they won't turn PS Plus into a Game Pass competitor, a true Game Pass competitor, that's on them. They have the ability to do it, but they don't want to do it. They don't want all these subs. Those subs will supplement the games that you're making. And you've already cut the cost in these games anyway. So, whatever. I'm tired of talking about Sony and their idiotic ways of doing business and them crying about stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. So, it's crazy. But let me know in the comments, is Sony's kind of direction, do you see it panning out without them changing? Do you think that they can succeed? Do you think that they can survive without changing The real question is, how long can they survive without changing the model, without doing day and date, without really being a competitor to Game Pass? And what do you think about those Candy Crush numbers? You know, do you think when Microsoft said it really is about King and getting this mobile store, do you think they were really telling the truth? I mean, some people are like, no, they're just trying to distract. It really is about Call of Duty. But when I heard that, I was like, oh shoot, I think they're right. Because, you know, with Phil Spencer at the head of Microsoft Gaming, CEO of Microsoft Gaming, he's truthful for the most part. I mean, he said some things that he probably wishes that he didn't, and ultimately didn't come true, like the whole VR stuff for Xbox One. But that was him speaking and then, you know, having to change course down the line. It's not like he said something that he knew was a lie. It was more of a, okay, this is the plan, we want to do it, but, you know, things change, we can't do it. Or we won't, it would be stupid to do it. And they were right to not do it, because PSVR 2, that bad boy is failing so hard, oh boy. Anyway, appreciate y'all. Hit it up in the comments. You know what to do. And once again, I'm still working on the song, don't worry. I'm gonna work on it again tonight a little bit. Boop, boop, boop. But I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you on the next one. Just wait.